So the spring market is upon us. It is not a myth. It is a reality. And if you want to know what that means for you as a buyer in the northern Kentucky area, then this is the video you want to watch. Hey everybody, I'm Devin with Coldwell Banker.
Joe Brandenburg, third rate. Happy to be with you guys.
And we want to talk a little bit today about the spring market. So maybe you've heard this term, even if you're not really involved in real estate a lot. The spring market is coming, or the spring market is here, or the spring market is busy. What does that mean? In terms of buying and selling houses, the spring market is just really, it's the busiest time of the year. People come out of the winter, they've got a little bit of that cabin fever. People start looking at moving after the school year ends, things like that. So we generally see more listings coming on the market and more buyers ready to go out and look at houses.
I would say so. Yeah. Just means significantly more competition if this is the season that you want to get out there and look for a house.
Absolutely. So I have a current buyer right now that we are getting ready to list their house. We've already had people, it's not even on the market yet. We've already had people that are looking at it that are interested. That's how much interest is out there. And we've been out looking at houses already because thankfully they're in a position where they don't have to sell to be able to buy. But we've been making offers and getting outbid already, and we're making strong offers. We're putting good money down. We're making full priced offers and still getting outbid. And right now, as we're recording this, it's just March.
Oh yeah, we're in like the first third of spring.
So as we get into April, May, and even June, even though that doesn't really usually get thought of as spring, that kind of competition is going to get even higher. And there are several reasons for that. One has to do with what goes on nationally with the Fed. And what we're hearing, Joe, is that the Fed is planning on a series of rate cuts this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how does that affect what happens in the real estate market and what buyers do?
So real estate, rate cuts are going to mean that you have significantly more competition as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of like doubling down as far as competition goes. We've got spring, the most prominent season of the year. That's in the real estate industry.
Mm-hmm.
And you have rate cuts, which means people are going to be able to afford more house because of how that works with your debt to income ratios. Mm-hmm. So lower rates mean you can afford more house and you're going to have more competition because of the fact that it's spring and everybody wants to buy more house.
So it's kind of a catch-22 because if the rates go down, that means you can afford more house. That gets people excited. But then what happens is more people jump in because they can afford more house too.
Oh, yeah.
And so what happens then is generally, if the market is strong, which it is strong here in northern Kentucky and Ohio too, then usually prices rise. So your buying power goes up. But when prices rise, that can just make the house that you wanted to buy more expensive, which can negate your buying power.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a balance game, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got the ability to buy more house. So does everyone else. And so you have more demand, which drives the prices up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Taylor Ford's time.
And so if somebody is looking at, you know what, I need to buy a house. We're getting married. We're having a baby. We're adopting kids. We just need more space, whatever that is. Or maybe they just want to buy a house. I've never bought a house. I live in an apartment. I live in my mom's basement, whatever it might be. I'm ready to pursue home ownership.
Right.
As they think about the spring market, it can feel daunting hearing all this. Oh, prices may go up because that's probably what's going to happen. There's no reason to think that the prices are going to go down significantly in our market. We've got strong job growth. We've got interest rates that are projected to get better. We've got low inventory. Those factors come together to suggest prices will not go down.
No, not competition.
So what does a buyer do? How do they get started? And how can they put themselves in the strongest position to where if they see a house online or they get with me or another agent and go and look in person, say, hey, I really like it, to be able to make that offer and make it competitive? What do they do?
I mean, specifically on my end of things, I would say prepare for battle. Go ahead and get pre-approved.
Like that.
Go ahead and you've got lot of competition out there. So whatever steps you can take to be ahead of the competition is going to make all the difference in the world. Get pre-approved. Have all of your documents in order. Know what your financial situation is. Know what your needs and wants are for a house. That's more on Devin's side of things. But regardless, it's about being prepared, getting ahead of the game.
So when you talk about getting pre-approved, again, we get bombarded with all this information, and there's all the online lenders, which, in full disclosure, I've worked with online lenders. They can get the job done, okay? But there's a difference in working with a big box online lender, working with a local lender such as yourself. But a lot of times what happens is when somebody goes to one of those big box lenders, they don't come to me or any other agent with a pre-approval, even though it may say pre-approved on it.
Right.
They come with what's actually a pre-qualification.
Yes.
Can you explain the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval, and why the pre-approval is better?
Yeah, I mean, really, the short answer is a pre-approval is more in depth. We actually take a look at documents. We take a look at how those numbers work, set them up with the debt to income ratios, and really, it's just more concrete. A pre-qualification is, well, a pre-qualification could be on stated income. A pre-qualification is just saying, well, we hear you want to get a loan, and from what you said, it sounds good, and so good stuff. A pre-approval is much more concrete.
And again, in a hot market where there's lots of competition, you come in with the pre-qualification where you've filled out the application. They pull your credit. Sure, right? They do pull your credit and look at your credit, but they haven't looked at your income. They haven't looked at your tax returns. They haven't verified your job situation. You've just told them, oh, I make $100,000 a year. Well, think of it this way. You may make $100,000 a year, but do you have any write-offs? Are you reducing for tax purposes what that income looks like according to the IRS? Well, that can affect your purchasing power. So if I go to get pre-approved and I just say, well, I make X, they may say, oh, well, you can go based on your credit and based on the income that you're telling us, you may be able to go and buy a house for, let's just say, $300,000. Nice round number.
Right.
But once I find the house and I tell my agent, hey, I've got my letter, and they put in the offer with that pre-qualification, not really pre-approval, and then I have to go and actually turn in the documents afterwards while we're under contract. We're doing the inspections. I'm paying for an inspection. I'm paying for an appraisal. All right. I turn in all my documents, and they look at all that and they say, oh, wait. Right. Your actual income is $20,000 less, $25,000 less, $10,000 less even, right? Depending on the price point. That can make or break you being able to buy that house, right?
Absolutely. And you've already done all this legwork to get in.
Yeah.
So now we're really in trouble. So I hear you.
And it's not a good place to be as an agent to have to go back and say, oops, you know what? We can't actually buy that house, Mr. Seller and listing agent, because my people, they weren't actually pre-approved. They were pre-qualified. And it doesn't feel good as the buyer. You get mad. And a lot of times you get mad at everybody, which I understand. You're frustrated because you were told you could go buy that house, but they didn't review all the stuff that they needed to truly tell you, here is what your purchasing power is. And that is not something that could just be calculated correctly on a free app.
Right.
You can get a good price range.
Sure.
You can get a ballpark. All right. But you need to work with a lender. And I suggest a local lender. And here's why. Number one, your big box people are not available nights and weekends. All right. When are you probably available to look at houses and want me as an agent to write offers?
Weekends.
Nights and weekends.
Yeah.
Number two, a lot of times you don't have one point of contact. It's somebody different looking at your file every time, which can cause delay or confusion if you need something right away. We need a situation addressed right away because, oh, well, I'll get back to you in a couple of hours. I'll get back to you by the end of the day. Sometimes in a competitive market, we have to make a decision in the next hour or two, not just sometime today. All right. So working with a local lender, though, if I call Joe, guess who's going to answer the phone? Joe.
There is no 1-800 number.
If
You
we
have my
need
cell phone
something,
number.
if we need something,
Yeah.
and I say, Joe, I know you got other things going on. I need this done right now.
Yeah.
Guess what Joe's going to do?
That.
Joe's going to pull his car over. If he's driving down the road, open up his hotspot and get that done. He's going to stop his bowling league for a moment. Time out, guy. Whatever it is he's doing, that's what a local lender is going to do, not a big box lender that works 9 to 5.
Absolutely.
Monday through Friday. That can make or break an offer in a competitive market. So that's why I think, again, you can work with whoever you want. And on the agent side, I can truly sense I can work with anybody. But I always, always, always recommend the local lender because of the service and because of the efficiency and the communication. I can get questions answered quickly. You can get questions answered quickly. We can get responses and we know what we're doing. So, Joe, somebody says, okay, you convinced me. I need to work with a local lender and I want an actual pre-approval, not a pre-qualification. We've talked documents. What documents do they need?
So a good way to remember it for me is the 4 2s and an ID. So we do need a photocopy of the ID. A driver's license is the most common.
Non-expired.
Yeah, definitely not expired. But shy of that, the more financial side of things is 2 most recent months bank statements, 2 most recent pay stubs, 2 most recent years W-2 or 1099, and 2 most recent years tax returns. So both sides of the tax side of things, really. W-2 is going to be your income, and your tax return is basically the proof that you're doing your taxes. More often than not, actually, 100% of the time, you need to have been caught up on your taxes in order to buy a home. Specifically with anything government run as well. Because, I mean, it's the government. They're going to want to be paid first before you can buy a house. But even if you're just going conventional, you have to be caught up on taxes.
So what if somebody says, okay, I got my bank statements.
Sure.
I got my pay stubs. I don't know where my tax returns are.
Right. Well, at that point, I would suggest whoever you did your taxes with still has all that on file. I would say contact your tax preparer, and they'll definitely have that. So
that's why you write them that big fat check to do your taxes. Okay, well, let's get this process started. Let's start looking at stuff. Let's start talking because it's going to give us a good idea. All right. But we're going to need that before we close escrow, which depending on how long it takes us to find a home, we could be looking, if we started the process today, we could be looking 35, 40 days from now, we're closing on a home. If we go out and find something right away, it could be 60 days, 90 days. It depends on how long it takes us to find the home. And then the actual loan approval process, the buying process, where we're going through the inspections, the appraisal, and all that, is generally going to take how long?
So as you're going through, once you're under contract, I think 30 to 45 days, especially if your documents are in order, then 30 days is my personal goal.
Okay.
45 days if there's some hiccups along the way, if you don't have all your stuff in order, that's fine. I mean, but 45 I think is a maximum. I would lose sleep going over 45 days.
Now, certain kinds of loans can also take a little bit longer.
Yes.
Well, right. So if you're doing a USDA loan, for instance, everything on our end might be done in that 30 days.
Sure.
But that loan then has to actually go to USDA to be approved.
Right.
And reviewed. And that process takes as long as the government office.
Exactly.
But some loans, sometimes it's not the lender's fault that it's not closing on time. Sometimes it's the government's fault if you're doing a government-backed loan. And guys, I want to stress this. Sometimes it's your fault as the buyer. I just said it's the buyer's fault. Oh my gosh. I know. You're going to turn the video off. But why? Because he can't give you the approval. We can't get that clear to close if they've asked for those bank statements and you haven't given them those bank statements. If they've asked for that tax return and you haven't given them that tax return.
Oh yeah.
So you're not just asking for this information because you still want to sit around at night and look at all these people's personal info, right?
I won't.
He doesn't. That's what the processors are for. But you actually need it. So when we say, hey, I need 2 of these, and then 30 days later, you may ask for updated bank statements, right?
Absolutely. Things expire. Your most recent pay stubs are not your most recent pay stubs when we're getting ready to close. So, I mean, we'll need documents. That's part of this.
Mhm.
If you want to own a home, there's some legwork that goes into it.
Yeah.
But it's the most worthwhile. It's worth the legwork.
It is.
Talking about a frantic month, not even frantic, a work-fueled month for a lifetime of being a homeowner.
And again, we're here to help with that process. For you to rely on us, you make the decisions as a client. You decide what house, you decide if you want to go with this program or that program, if you can qualify for different ones. You may find out that, hey, I only have to do an FHA loan with 3.5% down, but maybe I want to put more down so I have more equity. All of those are decisions that you make. But we can't put you in the position to make the decision without the information.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that I see over and over again is people come to me all the time. Hey, I want to go look at this house. Have you talked to the lender? Have you got pre-approved? No, but this is what I pay in rent.
Sure.
I mean, that can give you a good idea of what kind of payment you can afford.
Mhm.
But just because, let's say you pay $2,000 a month in rent, which is pretty substantial, but it's happening in our area, depending on your credit, your debt to income ratio, you may not be able to afford a $2,000 a month mortgage payment. So then we want to have that conversation before you find a house and fall in love, which is why, sure, you look at homes.com, you look at Zillow, you look at realtor.com, whatever it might be. When you come to me, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to have the conversation. Have you talked to the lender? Have you talked to, whether it's my lender or whether it's another lender, I want you to talk to somebody, and I'm going to suggest a local lender like my friend Joe right here. Joe, how can they get a hold of you if they have questions?
Feel free to give me a call on my personal line. We don't have an 800 number. My number is 513-907-2530. Day or night. If I'm asleep, I'll call you in the morning. Feel free.
Fair enough. Fair enough. After 11 p.m., probably going to get a response the next morning.
Maybe.
After 11 p.m., you may or may not get a response from me because sometimes that's the only time I can do work because that's when my kids are asleep.
I hear you there.
So I don't know. But if you do call me at 11 p.m. and I answer, you better be ready to talk. I'm Devin Cronin with Coldwell Banker. Again, if you need to reach me, 859-962-7978 or go to therealestatepastor.com.
Thanks, guys.